Hey, Margie here. Would you like to learn what you can do to increase your self confidence and self esteem? Well, if the answer is yes, you are in the right place because oftentimes in life, things happen that lower our self confidence, and this can impact our decision making for years or even decades. But the good news is there's a lot that you can do. And that's what we're going to delve into today with our special guest, Alexandra Dotcheva. And Alexandra is the author of It Really Is Simple, a holistic approach to self confidence. And she's also a musician, a violinist, and she's had a career in nursing since 2011. And her interest is the passion for educating patients on acquiring optimal health, but also teaching people in her mission to overcome self imposed limitations that prevent many from realizing their goals, finding peace of mind, and acquiring prosperity. By sharing her own journey to achieve control over the most important aspects of life, Alexandra's goal is to inspire others to turn away from various forms of fear and self doubt and go after their dreams. Instead of leading lives subdued to conventional ways of thinking that have long been proven outdated, inadequate, and damaging to a person's self esteem and self confidence. And in today's talk, she goes over the five essential aspects or pillars of life that so many of us have not given attention to that have a huge impact on our self confidence. So, lots of great information. So, stay tuned. Welcome, Alexandra. I'm really happy to have you on the podcast. And I think this topic is something really important. Most people don't think about it. And I'm just excited for you to present this. So, welcome.
Thank you, Margie, for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
Well, let's talk about this because you wrote a whole book on self confidence and from so many different perspectives, and it contains so much great information. But what prompted you to do that on such what a lot of people think of as not a big deal? People think, oh, self confidence. They don't realize you could have massive pages and so much information on this.
Right. My personal experience with struggling with low self-esteem and poor self-confidence for over 20 years. In my youth, I'm 6 years old now, and it was mostly self-inflicted for a very long time because I thought it was the cool and humble thing to do, and I was wrong, of course, but I realized this much later. And the book came because people started asking me when I became successful as a nurse and a real estate investor and options trader and all that. And I built my self confidence with perpetual wealth and health integrated into good relationships for a holistic life approach that made me really successful and independent. People started getting curious how I did that. So in January of 2020, I started writing the book, the whole system of what I follow in my personal life and professional and financial life to help people get ideas. And if they like my approach, great. If not, at least it'll prompt them, it will inspire them to create their own paths and approaches by not being so afraid of failure or the judgment of others.
Oh, I love that. Well, you know what? Let's actually go into your backstory because I always like to hear and yours is really interesting. I mean, a violinist, you have a very interesting backstory. So why don't you just share how you sort of got to, you can share it briefly, but just to give us a little bit of background because I think it's so very interesting.
Sure. Well, I started the violin at age 6 because both my parents were musicians. And there was not much choice when you grow in a Eastern European country. I'm Bulgarian, right? So parents can determine early on what your future will be, especially if they're thriving musicians. So I earned my bachelor's degree in Bulgaria, then I came to the States and earned my master's and doctoral degrees in violin performance. Then in 2006, I saw the markets for classical musicians shrinking, orchestras downsizing, bankrupting. And in 2008, I figured, I've been a violinist for 26 years and I know nothing but music. However, this needs to change because I felt suddenly very financially insecure. And I went to put myself through nursing school. That was a tremendous challenge for me mentally and emotionally because I had to sort of abandon what I had done my entire life up to that point. Parents were terrified over the phone. Do you realize how difficult nursing is? What are you thinking? It's the hardest profession imaginable. You're going to be immersed in human suffering. you have no idea about that. You've been an artist your entire life. And I said, yes. And I actually do want to get an idea about this because, guys, I have no understanding of the real world as it really is. And I'm tired of living into an imaginary world. I'm 32 now. That was in 2008. It was hard. So nursing school, and then later on, a couple of years later, I went in investing also to secure my financials in terms of independence and not relying on anybody to make financial decisions for me. And I learned how to create cash flowing assets that are not depending on my job, unrelated to a job, to have some more holistic financial security. Because if you worry about finances in retirement and the stock market collapsing over your 401k, you can become very unhealthy from the stress. And I also was extremely careful in optimizing my health to the fullest without any compromise and with full self discipline. So I don't become sick like many of my colleagues who are sicker than the patients we're teaching how to be healthy, right? So there is the double standard right there with the healthcare system, because I realized that I learned along the years of my nursing career that healthcare is the first cause of personal bankruptcy in this country. So I understood that if I'm 100% healthy, I will be able to be happy in every other aspect of my life because it's all integrated.
Love that. Okay, so we're talking about self confidence, and I am such a big believer because, as everybody listening knows, I teach happiness. And to me, that's the foundation of so many things. And when you can learn to enjoy your life and, and feel good about yourself, miracles happen. But self-confidence is a big piece of that. And I love in your book, you really talk about it from many levels, from health, spirituality, career, finances, relationships, all of those pieces intertwined help develop your self-confidence. So why don't you share maybe some of your favorite things that the audience listening maybe can put into their life, or areas that they should focus on so that they can develop self-confidence? And maybe tell us before even that, how do we know? How do we know? Like, what are some signs and symptoms that maybe we're really lacking self-confidence?
Um, it's not hard to acknowledge you're lacking self-confidence, the particular aspect of life. But I have found that the important part is to really elevate all of these aspects and keep them at optimal levels at all times, because ultimately you're responsible for your entire life, for the integrity of your life, and nobody else can be blamed or held accountable but you. So with health, for example, I'm absolutely adamant about dieting. I am a whole foods organic vegan. I exercise 4 days a week, 2.5 hours a day. My routines are pretty steep. And I was a martial artist before that for 12 years. Okay. So that cultivated in me this self demands to persistent and relentless goal setting with respect to my health, including diet, exercise. And I also detox every day, right? Because of the exposure to toxins daily. Of course, we limited all the chemicals in our house, but the air, even the organic food that you eat, the plant based organic food, to trust the farmers, but how much can you trust the farmers? There's so much exposure to toxins with this cancer epidemic in the United States. I mean, it's so environmentally related in many, many ways. The genetic cancers are what, 6 to 10%. Everything else is man-made, man-induced. So this integrity of health allows me to have the energy to pursue my other goals in my career, my businesses, my real estate businesses, and with my relationships, of course, to select the proper relationships in terms of you hang around people who are contributive to your personal growth, and you make yourself less available to people that impede your personal growth intentionally or unintentionally. Okay. So the other aspects as far as career, if you strive to be helpful with your career and see the appreciation of your clients or patients, whoever the person you're servicing can be, that's very important to your spirituality and also comes with your health. But you have to be able to take care of your health in order to take care of the people you're servicing through your career. You can't sacrifice the health aspect for other people for a long time, because then you will start deteriorating in ways that you didn't plan before, and that can be costly, that can be stressful, and it can also impact your relationships very poorly.
So, in terms of the self confidence piece, though, what do you think? What I know you've dealt with this for a while. You wrote the book on it. What do you see are some of the problems that are keeping all of us in? And so, a lot of people really with reduced self confidence. What do you see are some of the areas that people struggle with?
The main three areas I see people struggle with are health, finances, and relationships. And a vast reason for this, a very heavy reason for that, is that inability to set genuine goals for the long term. Genuine meaning not influenced so much by the opinions or suggestions of others. I mean, you can influence yourself by others can influence you in a way to point to a certain direction, but ultimately, many people have goals or goals that are really tailored to please somebody else or not to upset those around them. It's hard for some people to self-search and find their true desires, their true aspirations, because it also takes responsibility. It's easier to rely on others to suggest to us what to do, or if it doesn't work, then we can hold them accountable or blame them secretly, or audibly say, "Oh, you told me to do that, but it didn't work, so why did I listen to you?" But people need to learn. Most of us need to learn to listen to our own inner voice, because ultimately we know best what is best for us after we accumulate a sufficient amount of knowledge. And then when we learn to question what we learned, that's very important.
So I have a
Lo-
question. Oh, sorry. Continue.
Just question what you learn, because authority sometimes can be very deceptive. And if you heavily rely on authority, you can go in a way that's is really not in your best interest. And that applies to every aspect of your life, your health, spirituality, career, finances, or relationships. But the proper setting of goals for yourself based on your own aspirations and not so much on others' opinions is what builds self-esteem. And then going after these goals and accomplishing them is what builds your self-confidence. You become a confident person on the path of accomplishing your goals, because you become a different person as you accomplish each goal, solving the problems that you previously thought you couldn't solve or you shouldn't try or attempt to solve.
So what do you recommend? Because people do this all sorts of different ways. Do you have a method where, where you sit in silence and write down, or, is there any methods? I know you talk about these in the book, but is there any methods that you recommend where people can start? I think that's so important about setting realistic goals. And then you're right, when you accomplish them, you feel like $1,000,000, and
Yes.
it just sort of goes up from there. But
They
what
have to be
suggestions would you have?
realistic, but they have to be realistic goals, but also challenging goals. You don't limit yourself within your current ability. You always aspire to become able to do something more. As far as the method, yes, there is a method. When you set the goal, you first find out where you are in the current situation, in the current day, present day, in relation to that goal. Then you will see what is preventing you from accomplishing the goal, and you have to clean house. And that's with every aspect of your life. You have to remove the obstacles to your goal. And if you cannot remove the obstacles, you need to strive to remove yourself from the obstacles, because you need to start as clean as possible to replace the obstacles with the things that you want in your life within that particular aspect. This is the method. So you don't acquire things that you want without first being aware of what is preventing you from acquiring the things that you want, because you can't have clutter. If you have a lot of junk that you doesn't pertain to your personal growth, but then you start adding the wonderful things without clearing the space first, that creates clutter in your mind and in your life, if that makes sense. But with every aspect of your life, what is preventing me? What am I doing wrong? Who is in the way? What is in the way? What do I need to clear first? And then I will build on a clean piece of land my wonderful building of self-confidence in every life aspect. That's the method. Then you start working towards these goals. And of course, you make the plan. You adhere to the plan to the letter. You can change it a little bit, but you never deviate from it so that it will compromise the final goal. You always keep the most ambitious goal in sight, like the finest destination of your achievements. But each further away goal and more ambitious goal has a lot of steps between you and that achievement. So you're going to be keeping the perspective in place while you work through each goal. But again, you need to have a clear awareness where you are at each point to follow the goal and not get distracted and not allow distractions to get in the way. So this is the method. And then you go for it. You have to be willing to take the risk, to keep learning and adjusting to ways, adapting to little changes here and there, which contribute to your learning and self-confidence building. But at the end of your destination, you will see, oh, the destination is great that I achieved it, but what became of me in the meantime is like 10 times more important than the actual destination when I'm finally arrived at.
And in terms of, do you recommend every day writing down your goals or looking at them? Or do you recommend, every week? Do you recommend weekly, monthly? Is there anything that specific that you think
This is a very
helps?
individual question. Some people recommend every day, and I've done that. I've tried everything. I've done every day, I've done monthly, but I really think about my goals all the time. Even while I work on specific items on each goal, I constantly keep the perspective because there are lots of daunting tasks that you have to do before you achieve your wonderful dream. And you have to remind yourself, this is my dream. And if it helps to see it in writing, by all means, write it down, glue it on all the walls of your house, the mirror of your bathroom, whatever helps you to keep you afloat of the daily routines that drag us down emotionally and kind of sometimes make us lose perspective and hope and belief in our pursuit, right? A day can be full of such events, but if you learn to ignore them in a way that you acknowledge the frustrations, but then you say, okay, but this is part of the learning process, that's part of the learning curve. I'm aspiring to something bigger than that. And the most important part and the most challenging part is to remind yourself of this when you're most frustrated, most aggravated, and most sad, whatever the event in your day may be. If you're able to transform your mindset in these moments, you will be in full control of your life. At some point, when you're really good at it's an exercise, but it's really also becoming a habit of transforming the mindset at the very moment, not 5 hours later. Right. Because the healthier the sooner you acquire the healthy state of mind in a challenging situation, the faster you will solve that situation, the faster you'll learn from it, and the faster you will appreciate yourself for gaining control over your mindset in a difficult situation.
Is there any special technique? Do you take some deep breaths? Because sometimes, just like you said, you get wrapped up in it, and it's hard. It's hard to move beyond because you get bogged down. And so, do you recommend people do whatever practices that work for them, or any special things when they're feeling they just can't do it, or they're just overwhelmed by everything?
The deep breathing is the simplest way to calm your mind and heart, and it comes with meditation practice, which you later on um, transmit throughout your day. The mindset of meditation with the constant awareness and yet relaxation to maintain a very sound judgment on the things about you. And if a challenging situation arrives, I like to imagine myself meditating through a challenging situation. And that helps me better understand the person in the other shoes, put myself in the other person's shoes and see where they come from, because it's usually people that aggravate you. It's not so much the traffic light or it's people. And you have to treat them with respect. And you also need to be able to set firm and proper limits if you see that things are going in a dramatically wrong direction that is not entirely in your control. The mindset of meditation is what helps me transform that click of the emotion that comes and might spiral out of control. And I know this is hard because I had to practice this for many years to become better at it. I'm still working on it. Perfection is still in the distance. However, I'm a heck more better than I was 10 years ago. So I can tell you, if you start practicing, with practice, it gets better and you will get through the situation. Again, deep breathing is good. Of course, you cannot just detach yourself and start taking 10 deep breaths in the middle of a disaster. But the mindset of the deep breathing is what you have to keep beside you while you are solving the situation. And at some point, it becomes an integral part of you. And every hard situation becomes a step easier and easier and easier each and every time.
Do you say anything to yourself? Okay, so we're in this challenging situation and you're going to visualize the meditation. Are there any words you say to yourself? Like, is there
I
anything?
have I have, if it's really confrontation, it's not a confrontation, but like a conflict situation within some, like say a patient doesn't understand what's really the best and they're putting their life at risk and they get aggravated because they really don't feel like they're stressed, they're overwhelmed, they don't want to take any more information. I put myself aside and said, you're not important, the patient is important. So be very mindful of the patient. You're not important. Your emotions are not your emotions are disposable at this point. That's a very quick mental process that I have adopted. And I focus on the problem at hand and leave myself aside. And that takes care of the emotional aspect. And then you deal with the actual problem. I have described this pretty well in chapter 2, I believe.
No, I
The
love
method.
that. And you said something really great that I think is very, very powerful. You said sometimes you look at it from the eyes of the other person. And And when you put compassion, when you can actually empathize and put yourself in their shoes, because so many of us harbor anger, resentment, we are not willing to forgive. And one of the best techniques, I agree with you, is looking at it from a different perspective and putting, seeing maybe some compassion for the other person, why they're thinking that way. And it really does help. It really does give you a different mindset to approach it. So I love what you're
It
saying.
does. And it's also very important to let the person know that you understand their feelings, that you acknowledge they were thinking. Then they will be more cooperative and willing to listen a little bit more. Whether they'll make the right decision, that's up to them. And you have to respect that too. Even
Yeah.
if they opt out to make the wrong decision for themselves. At the moment you acknowledge that person is capable of making their decisions, all you're there for is to help and teach and give them your piece of your what is it, 2 seconds of your two how do you say it in English, but sometimes I lose these terms. But
2 cents, it's called.
two
Your two
cents,
cents.
right?
Yeah.
So anyway, you gave them your 2 cents, and from then on, it's on them. They have the power to make the decision, and you don't beat yourself up over them making the wrong decision because you're not responsible for their decision ultimately, if you have taught them right. Okay. Now, if you didn't give them the accurate knowledge, you didn't give them sufficient knowledge and choices, then it is on you that somebody made that wrong decision, right? In the middle of a conflict or disagreement or like profound misunderstanding or lack of knowledge of what really is going on. Usually for me, these have been situations that I have to pace my own ego, my process, and understand that the person on the other side is more important. And that helps. That helps taper the frustrations, at least in my experience.
A lot of people are listening and they're like, oh gosh, and I know it myself, my biggest problem is clutter. And I'll do a million wonderful things for my career and I'm helping the world and doing all these things. And I just sort of push it out. Oh, that's not important, and so to choose what goals, so often we try to choose the easiest ones. Like I'll never choose the clearing clutter as my first goal. Is there a method to that? That you need to do all of them. But is there any way do you start where you're the weakest at, or what do you recommend in terms of where to begin, your first very beginning, if you decide, what, I am going to follow your advice and start with my self-confidence and let's start at the beginning. Is there, does it matter? Do you see where people start an easier way or their biggest challenge they should start with in small doses?
It's not going to be easy. And you better don't aim at small doses because otherwise you will not challenge yourself enough to overcome the thing that's in the way in the first place, that's preventing you from thriving. You will have to set and write goals in every aspect of your life, recognize where you are, and seek guidance and knowledge if you need it, if it can be given to you, or if you believe that you understand very well, you already know what you should be doing, but you're not doing it. Go ahead and do it. For instance, when I go to my patients' homes and the patient says, okay, I really want to get rid of bad food, how do I do that? So let's look at your fridge. If we look at the fridge, say, so this really doesn't belong into your body or the bodies of your family members because it causes such and such and such harm. And it was funny, when I was doing the book, I edited it 20 times myself before I even offered it to my independent publisher and his editor. But the editor kept moving because I put the fridge and pantry in two places, fridge and pantry. So he kept scratching pantry because he thought that the fridge is the enough to mention. And I kept adding pantry in it. And I eventually said, look, in my experience, the pantry is a bigger unit than the fridge. And that's where most of the harmful food is actually stored in forms of canned, over salty food, over sugared food, cans that are not labeled non-GMO organic, cans that are not labeled non-BPA, which is the carcinogenic component creating cancer in people. So I've pointed out to patients in their pantries like 30, 45, 50%, in some cases, everything in their pantry needs to go to the trash. Or I tell them, if they kind of have a sense of humor, I tell them, give them these things to somebody you really, really don't like. Don't eat it. Don't eat it. So that's how you clean space for your healthy food from the health perspective. You clean everything out of your house that does not contribute to your health. Get it out of there. So it's a similar process with your relationships. You evaluate which people are worthy of your attention and time and which ones are a waste of time or which ones are damageable to your growth, like putting you down and constantly finding ways to criticize you for the wrong reason. And those people, you can make yourself less available to. So you clean these obstacles out of your life, or you remove yourself from them if you can't really remove it. There are a couple of ways to clean house. Okay. Then with finances, first of all, you have to have a very organized financial system. You have to have a perfect track of your expenses and income and expenses. You should never be with a negative income at the end of the month. If you want to save any money for investment, education, and literacy, and then for the investments themselves. Okay. Can't spend every penny out of your paycheck, because otherwise you won't be able to build the assets that will help you not depend on a job 5 or 10 years from now. All right. So these are just to give 3 examples of how you clean shop. You can focus on one problem first, but it's important to understand every aspect of your life is just as important as the thing that you're currently fixating on. And avoiding the solving the rest is not going to help you with your main problem, because they're all integrated.
Now, in order to build, no, that's such good information. And I guess you've seen this then when you've seen people. What have you seen as, I mean, it's so interesting that you're both a nurse, a musician, and you help people with their finances. So you see really
Mhm.
all different aspects of people. And what do you find when do you see, obviously you see the carryover in terms of when they get rid of the unhealthy food, in terms of the other aspects of their life, as their self-confidence builds and they feel better?
Right. Well, I mean, if the person really decides to take ownership of their health, for example, and they get rid of the bad food and start eating really clean, like I said, I've been an organic whole foods vegan for 4.5 years, so I don't compromise that. And if somebody's going to give me grief about it, I just don't go eat with them. We can talk over the phone. We can meet at a tea parlor where there is organic tea. And if they don't want that, then I know that this person doesn't really want to see me. They want to have a large meal with company. So, again, prioritization. Prioritization. Is this relationship worth it for the sake of the relationship, or is it a false perception of a relationship with somebody who really doesn't necessarily want to see you or gain your knowledge or give you their knowledge in a meaningful way? So with health, people have tended to eliminate some relationships out of their lives. And when they adopt a healthy lifestyle, they also change their view on finances, because they find out that when they stop buying the food that is creating diseases, then they have many more means to buy quality food. And the quality food, it's not expensive food. You just buy from a farmer's market the fruits and vegetables, rice, grains, and legumes. That's when you cook the rice and legumes, you can carry you for 7 days. You cook a pound of beans, that's not expensive, but you can eat it for 3 or 4 days if you spice it properly. It's just so that's just a simple example of how the healthy food really isn't as expensive as people like to say it is. You don't have to buy it from some expensive whole food store, because the healthiest things, organic things, are in your closest grocery store. And there are usually in your area 3 or 4 grocery stores that compete for a price. And one of them will beat the prices of all others with their organic produce. And that's where you focus your attention. And when people have done that, they have discovered that suddenly they have more money, they spend less money on food, they have more money to buy other necessary things or save for investments. And they have also prioritized their relationships in terms of being with people who are supportive of their healthy diet and their life change.
I couldn't agree with you more. Because it's always interesting to me where people will say something as though, "Oh, but I'm eating with these people, so I can't eat healthy." And I think to myself, like, I don't care what people think about what I order. It's a matter of feeling good enough in your own shoes that you're willing to prioritize your health and just not care, just like you said. But the other thing is, I think what you said was also so important about not letting other people get you down. And that's, toxic relationships. As a physical
Exactly.
therapist, oh my gosh, I could feel muscles when people, how muscle tone changed because of who people were around. So I just couldn't agree with you more in what you're saying in terms of things that, a lot of them don't seem like big deals, but they're huge deals.
They're huge. You're huge. You have to take example from the people who are much more successful than you are in the areas where you want to be successful. And that absolutely includes your health and fitness. And you're a physical therapist, bones, muscles, your appearance, your so much boosts your self-confidence if you have the fit body, lean body with minimal body fat and stable bone structure that supports all these muscles. It's just life-changing if you achieve that.
And what about celebration? When you do accomplish something, does that, have you found in all your work that that increases your self-confidence when you stop and celebrate what you've done?
I don't really celebrate, but I do feel that I'm more confident and I can take another challenge. And I usually create my own challenges. Of course, sometimes they come uninvited, but um, yeah, I never know what the next challenge will be now that so many things are under control that I've previously were not. But there is always something new, like this book all of a sudden occurred to me 2 years ago. And next thing I knew, I was writing between 3 8 hours a day for 2 years. So, well, yeah, things happened for a reason, but the self-confidence you feel as you persevere to your goals. That's what builds self-confidence. And eventually it could be a matter of celebration when you kind of see, oh, look at how far I've gone. Especially if you want to give up on something. It's like, well, I didn't give up on this, this, and this. Why give up now? And that makes you proud too, that you kick your butt and say, keep going. There's no reason to give up now. That makes you proud. And that's also a case for celebration if you know that 10 years ago you would have given up and
Yeah.
let that go.
And do you like check off the goal or anything? I mean, I personally am thinking of
Sometimes,
celebrating. It makes me feel so good when you've done something to just stop. Cause so often we live life and we don't celebrate or we don't make a big deal about it. And we just, but as you said, you look back, wow, I did that.
yeah, it's very nice. But once you get accustomed to accomplishing your goals on a consistent basis, then it becomes part of you and it's not unusual anymore, which is what helps you also take on harder goals and more challenging goals is you don't question yourself anymore whether you can do it or not.
Yeah, I love
Get the
that.
confidence already, right?
Yeah. So what else before we could talk forever because there's so many interesting points and your book has so much involved in it. So what would you say if you wanted to give like one or two lessons from your book for everybody listening? What else that we haven't covered would you want to share? Because there's so many. How many pages is your book?
393 pages.
Yeah, so a lot of
Yeah.
information for everybody.
Well, I would suggest if it will be great thing to buy the book because a book is a very inexpensive way to learn from somebody else's experience. You don't have to pay them for consultation or engage more of their time. You'll read the book at your own time, and it has extensive advice and suggestions on health, spirituality. There is one chapter on spirituality because I respected the fact that it's a very individual decision, the spiritual path. But I just shared my own so people can get some ideas how things evolve and what, because spirituality to me is two aspects: the meditation, you clear the mind, and then the inspiration, you nourish the mind. Then in chapter 13, you have the lifelong learning concept, which is the brain's fitness strategy, right? The body has a fitness strategy and the brain has a fitness strategy to meditation, inspiration, and lifelong learning. You have also practical advice on choosing your relationships. I have discussed 4 types of intimate partnership, which may help or prevent you from accomplishing your goals. So the way to evaluate your partner as an asset or a liability in your life, it's very important, very, very important. And of course, the financial aspect, which is another passion of mine to help people become financially independent on their own terms. That's a great contributor to self-confidence. You know that you can produce cash or money ethically at any point in your life once you learn the principles of investing. I think that's very powerful. And that also helps with your health and everything else because you view yourself as a very whole person, able to go through life. You become, like I like to say to other hosts of podcasts, you become an expert of your life.
Yeah, so
So in
that's
order to
great. They can
become
get the steps for that in
yeah.
the book.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's it is interesting because a lot of times they're not put together, where people are
Right.
working on their health. That's one thing. And their finances, how to get financial freedom, but not in the same book.
I really thought that it was very important to be the same book because the way I happened to do it in my life, I wasn't always aware what I was doing, but subconsciously it just made sense. And eventually, when that system emerged in front of my eyes, in front of my eyes, I said, "Well, actually, that's how it works because you can't ignore one thing for the interest of the other." And the book became like a very nice system of that. And I think it will make sense to people. It's both in paperback and ebook format. So the ebook is even more inexpensive than the paperback, of course. So if people have choices, whichever one they want to purchase from the website.
So the exciting thing is, what have you seen results wise? here it is, you work so hard and, you put your passions and everything that's made such a difference in your life into the book. But I think it's so exciting when you get feedback, how it's changed people's lives. So do you want to share anything with us about that?
I've had great feedback on the book. I haven't yet compiled the reviews for my website, but because I mean, I think the book is more important than the reviews, honestly. But I have get great feedback because people keep said, "Well, we started setting goals as a family now, and we're changing a lot of our diet because it just makes sense." And they've seen my pictures from the fitness because I sometimes post on Facebook as a joke, and they say, "Did you create these muscles on your vegan diet?" So of course I did because it increased my endurance 10 times, so I can do my crazy routines 2.5 hours a day, 4 days a week. So they get very inspired by that, especially when you see that you look super healthy with all this muscle mass at age 46 without makeup. I mean, you've done something right uh, for once in your life, right? So also financially, because of all the job losses and layoffs in the last 2 years, people now are starting to pay attention to this more than before. And they found the book, how they tell me, it's very inspiring in terms of becoming an investor from the right from the scratch, even if you don't know anything, but in the learning process, it's not as intimidating anymore.
Oh, that's great. That sounds just I'm so glad that you're sharing this with people and that you put this together and that it's nice though when you've worked so hard and put something together that can really make a big difference. And in this community, there are a lot of people who, concerned about their bone health, and it can be overwhelming. It really can be. It can be overwhelming because there's so many aspects of it, exercise, your nutrition,
Yeah.
your mindset. And so sometimes people go into overwhelm. So it's nice to be able to stop, just like you said, focus on your goals and have a method. And also in the process
Right.
to work on your finances. So that's sort of an extra bonus as well. So anyway, any last minute things before we end? This has been so helpful. And, I'm so excited to share about your book to everybody.
Oh, I can tell them where they can buy the book.
Yeah.
It's on the website at www.holisticselfconfidence.com, no dashes. I have a couple of videos on YouTube under my name, Alexandra Dotcheva. There are links to the website as well. So like I said, the website has the ebook format and the um, paperback. The paperback is currently available in the US only, and that's because of the atrocious shipping prices for the rest of the world. I'm still discussing with my publisher what I want to do about that. But they can individually approach from abroad. If your show is seen by people outside of the US, they can
Yeah.
always use the
Everybody
contact
all
form.
over.
They can also use the contact form if they want any consultation with me. That's fine too. But I suggest read the book first because you might find what you need in the book and not need further consultations if it really resonates with you and to give you a nice starting point. The ebook is downloadable instantly. They just need an EPUB file reader on the computer, and if their computer doesn't have one, downloadable from the internet for free, 5-minute process, really easy. So
Oh, that's great. Well, you've motivated me now to work on the clutter a little bit because I go in spurts and I always say, oh, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. But I think this has motivated me now to get back on the bandwagon. Anyway,
kind of thing.
well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm excited about everybody hearing all this wonderful information. So thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Alexandra and now have some new ideas and ways that you can bolster your own self confidence. And when you do, so many areas of your life can fall into place. All the links that Alexandra talked about, including the link to her book, will be in the show notes. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.